in commercial, the spaces needs to be identified like a landmark, and every building tries to be a landmark. It needs an iconic thought process. So the idea was, how can we create a joy in the end that the building starts looking like boxes, which can be jaw-dropping. When we talk about facades, at Ardete, we actually believe that each building needs to be curated in a very unique way. And that's how, where we have created different facades from commercial buildings to schools. So there always been a kind of importance to given to that, how this building would shape up. Because probably that's the first point where you interact with the building. And it's also the most significant impact it could leave on a point where, for example, if somebody walks into a school and the facade is actually so predominant, it actually engulfs you into the school. That is the first biggest win for an architecture, because every facade is actually communicating something to you. So in commercial facades, so it becomes all more important, because we need, in commercial, the space needs to be like a landmark, and every building tries to be a landmark. So in this particular purpose, our attempt for facades was to bring something which is long lasting, to bring something which is iconic. So iconicity can be created. It needs an iconic thought process, and it needs a unique way of doing something. So this is what has been a practice at Ardete. When the first time when we were actually given a project for Martins, where we were given a task to actually change the outlook of a building, which was done in 20-30 years ago. But what we wanted was, we wanted to have something which was immediately attractive, immediately striking, and it is visible from a long distance, and it is visible, though it is iconic, but it is perceivable. I mean, you can actually look from a shorter distance, you can actually appreciate it. So the idea was, how can we create a joy or something that was very exciting about it, because how the McDonald's got famous because of this golden arches, and it actually is a significance of where the brand is. So similarly, every brand needs to have a very strong identity that can be communicated to its right audience. So our endeavor is to find that kind of right recipe for the facade, so that it could completely transform what a building could be perceived. In the end, that the building starts looking like boxes, but that's the point where when we can actually create a facade which can be very strong enough to communicate what it is to the brand. So when we did hexalace, so the idea was to how do we create a new kind of feeling into a space where there were buildings around where they didn't actually resonate with the city which was built in, because it was built in Mohali, and Mohali had a very strong connection with Chandigarh, and Chandigarh has a very strong connection with concrete, because that's how most of the city was built. But in a place where in Mohali, where everything was being built as if it was built any other place, so we took a very strong stand how we could bring back concrete, use of concrete in a celebrated way, where we can recreate our facades by using a certain amount of concrete and in a certain way that has been done. So the idea was to build thin concrete shells. We did it in a kind of an hexagonal pattern, and we had a free-flowing grid that was going all around. So this one project has been a completely a different perspective, as in when we started at Ardete, where we have done different kinds of facades, hundreds of facades which are done for different purposes, different things. But this was the beginning where we could see that where we wanted to create that impact, something which was very strong, bold, where people can actually look at it. So there was a lot of research that was done on how a car would perceive it when it was being driven from a 200 feet away from a 200 feet road, and then how do a person look at from that particular place and to actually see how the building would look like. So it was very sensitive to how much would be the attention span of the person, at what distance, what is easily perceivable. So the modules grids were actually responding to the size that was being made, and everything that was coordinated in the building connected to where the person was standing. So this was a very strong move, and with that building we actually did like 10-12 other buildings in that particular region, and the whole endeavor was to create something which was very strongly impactful and it was very strongly communicative. So when we create facades at Ardete, we always want, like we always say that what can we do something which can be jaw dropping. Like when we did a school, we were actually we imagined a fantasy of having a box in the middle of the air and just supported with 2 columns. So that was what we could see from a road, and something which would feel like, what is this? So that's kind of excitement that it is to be created. So facade need to create that kind of excitement and an intrusion into the person's mind who is passing by. So that's the way, like how we created like different facades for different buildings. And even today when we work on a facade, it's about that what could we do something where there's already so much being done that could be very strikingly interesting and strikingly instantly appealing, because it's not about a logic or a program, but it's about that intent and that kind of content that which you would want to bring in, which the building would act like a magnet, bring the person inside.